Welcome back, warriors.
Yay!
Woohoo! We're in, I would say rare form, but I feel like sometimes, I would say 60% of the time, we're kind of loopy when we first start recording together.
Yes. And we were just chatting and then just dove into the welcome. So
that's true.
You know,
it's
we had
hard
the
to
energy
focus
from the pre-chat. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very attached to the way that you usually hit record and then we start going. And now that we've kind of thrown that to the wind, I'm like, now what? Anxiety about it.
Yeah. It's different.
Okay. Well, we're doing it. Here we are.
Warriors,
we are diving into a part 2 today. Part 2 of our most listened to episode.
Yep.
Which was anxiety and adult friendships.
Yep. Yeah.
And now,
most
of course,
played, most downloaded.
Yeah.
Like big spike. Like, yeah.
And I remember being worried about this episode when we recorded it because I had anxiety about talking about the topic.
Yep.
Because I've just always been insecure about relationships or that aren't, platonic relationships like forever.
Yeah.
And so the idea of talking about it on our podcast was nerve-wracking, but clearly it struck a nerve. And I remember I not only did, as you said, it got the most plays and downloads or whatever, but I heard from a lot of people in my life.
Yeah.
And on Instagram and stuff. And it was like, this episode really landed for me.
Yes.
And, I could relate. And I was like, oh shit, that's cool, I guess.
I'm glad we all struggle with making friends as adults.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And maintaining friendships.
Yes.
The big one, right?
Right.
Yeah. So we thought it might be fun, warriors, to approach this topic again and kind of check back in about how it's going.
Yes.
with our adult friendship experiences, our feelings about adult friendships and how navigating it has stayed the same, how it's shifted, if it's shifted. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to hear how things have changed or not changed for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Or even the takeaways. For me, it was really funny because I feel like I had this aha moment during our other episode, but you have a way better memory than me when it comes to our episodes. So correct me if I'm wrong. But I feel like one of my aha moments was like, oh, wait, I'm actually kind of good at making friends when I'm around people.
Yeah, you said that exact thing. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
And I feel like that was a takeaway for me. Then after an episode, I stopped the narrative that it was so hard. And more of the narrative was, oh, I have to be around people. And so being around people is hard. And not just standing on the street being like, hey, I want to make friends, but finding places to tap into communities to start, seeing if we wanted to make friends.
Yeah.
So that was that for me, based on that conversation, I was able to change my narrative a bit. So I have different barriers, but those are I'm more clear in the barriers and it's less about me thinking I'm bad at making friends.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's good, I guess. That's a new narrative for it.
Yeah. I have other hurdles and challenges, not just about finding communities, making friends online versus in person, or, Dan and I would like to have couple friends, but I'm going to be honest, it's really hard to find a couple where you both really like both parts of the
parties.
Couple. Yeah. And them living here. We loved hanging out with you and Adam. We wish you were closer. We wish we could hang out with Claude and Ed. So there are couples that we like, but it's really hard finding them in where we are living right now. So there's that, and then there's we've discussed with small talk, it's really hard for me to make friends at the beginning if there's that, small talk part. Because already I'm like, oh, I got to get out of this conversation. And then I don't want to invest in it,
Yes.
Yeah. So those are some things that have come up along with just what you were saying with the maintaining the friendships. It's there's effort in that, there's when you're starting to make new friends, there's the chance of disappointment, right? And like, do I want to put in the effort if I find out this person sucks? Right. And so that was like some of the things that have come up since our first episode.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, I can relate to some of that. I feel like some of my hangups continue to be or are still just being worried about judgment, being irritating to people, not having anything in common with them. Trying to work super hard to find common ground or something. And then if it's not there, it's like you said about small talk, I guess, but that's more about when we're meeting people that are newer to us or that are new to me that maybe Adam knows, but I don't know. And I guess the other major part of it that continues to be a struggle is just like, it's the investment piece. Like you're saying, it's like, do I care enough to spend the time and effort that I know it takes to form, create, maintain a happy, healthy, mutual, right, back and forth kind of relationship.
Yeah.
And I found myself becoming more awkward in it in some ways, like asking people right out, hey, are we friends?
Yeah.
Or do we just know each other? But like, I part of me is like, is that fucking weird that I'm like asking that of a person?
No, it's like you're dating. And at some point you want to know, hey,
where's this going?
Find this relationship. Yeah. Where is this going? Are we on the same page? So like, I love that. Let's have clarity in friendships, right? Like the things we want to know when we're dating someone, we want to know with our friends too. Making friends is like dating.
I've never really dated. This is part of the problem. I've never really dated, like ever. It's been with the same person for 22 years. We were children. Well, that sounds creepy. We were teenagers when we got together. And so like, and I'm an introvert and I'm only really extroverted in I'm myself always, but I'm only like willing to share and open up with people that I feel like I've, have that invested or vested relationship with. And most of those people I've been friends with for like over a decade, if not way longer. So,
and then, there's also the anxiety. I'm just going to interject here of like, cause I know you can relate, is like when friendships change. Right. So like when everyone's starting to get married and then they have less time for like girls' nights, and then they get pets and then they have kids or, like when those things happen, it changes the friendship too. So I think at our age, it's harder to make friends if like you're hanging out with a couple and they have kids. Right. And we don't have kids. So there's less commonness there and they might be a little bit more preoccupied with their kids, of course. Right.
Or the time frames are different too. Like we two of our really, really good friends who it's Drew, our former guest.
Yeah.
And his wife, Renee, who's amazing. Like they're, I consider both of them my friends. They're our friends, but Adam and Drew were friends since childhood. And then Drew and I got to know each other when Adam and I started dating in high school. And then we've been friends since. And Renee came into our lives, I don't even know how many, for years now. But, before they had their son, Caden, we hung out all the time. We saw each other. And it's the same as true. We see each other as often as we can. And the guys game together pretty frequently still. But like now it's about like figuring out, well, our timeline is different from theirs. And so navigating, are they going to find a babysitter for Caden? Are we going to go to a place where he can join us? Right. And like, we just had dinner with them like a week or two ago and, it was all three of them and it was great. And, we had a great time. We love their son and we have a great time with all three of them, but and I think we care less about it too. And it's funny. Like this is a question I might just like go ahead and ask Drew when we're done recording. It's like, how does it feel? I wonder for adults that, have families or those types of responsibilities when they're with people like Adam and I, for example, what's that dynamic like? Do they have any worries or guilt about like having to bring their kid along? It's like, we're always trying to say like, we're happy to do whatever is best for you all because we know it's a lot more challenging, navigating time and bedtime and when's the perfect time for dinner. And so being flexible too, right? That's kind of another thing that's coming up while we're chatting about this. It's like friendship requires so much. And one of those
Mhm.
things is flexibility and
Right.
just the willingness to be open and honest too, without the worry of judgment. It's like, and we know we can do that with them because they've been our friends for so long and vice
Right.
versa. But it's like, at what point, like you were talking about dating, it's like, at what point is that acceptable?
Right.
Should it be acceptable immediately? Or are we just at an age where it's like, I'm just going to say whatever, I'm going to put it out there. Like, that's why I'm being weird about it. It's like, hey, are we friends or are we just people that work together? So, like sometimes, or are we
Yeah.
friends or are we people that are connected in community on Instagram? Like, or,
Yes.
whatever, and just get some kind of an answer from them, even if it's like awkward in the moment. I
Right.
don't know.
I mean, okay, so there's like two very different things coming up when you're saying that. So the first thing is like as kids, we didn't have all this social media. So we didn't learn how to like figure out, okay, is this just someone I'm connected to on social media? Is this someone worth asking to hang out with outside of Instagram, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like I had pen pals and I'm sure I considered them my friends, right?
Right?
So
Pen pals. Oh my God.
yeah. And then when you're sharing about Drew, like the thing that I've noticed, right, is many of my friends have now had kids, right? Like starting from the age of like 21, right? Like my older long-term friends from like
Yeah.
elementary school, high school. And the thing that I've noticed is that once they have kids, first of all, their attention is more on their kids and less on our friendship, right? So I've
Sure.
seen this repeatedly over and over again. I totally get it. I'm not judging it.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times I'm friends with the mom, right? In the friendships, and then maybe become friends with the dad or whatever. But a lot of times it's the female that's my friend first. And
Right.
when I go there, I notice they like ask me to watch the kid in so many ways so that they can get stuff done, right?
That's interesting.
And yeah, and I've noticed this multiple times over the years. I was talking to my mom about it, how the friendship shifts, and then at the end of the hangout they're like, I'm so sorry we didn't get to hang out and catch up more. And I'm like, it's fine, I love your kid. And
Yeah.
also, yeah, like things change.
Right. It's like parents are just so overworked and
Yes.
overwhelmed too with just endless piles of shit to do. And on top
Mm-hmm.
of raising their kids, that like any extra hands, right? And it's like you wonder what the dynamic was. It's like, do they feel just like they know and love you so much and they know you're a safe person?
Right.
And so they're willing to maybe breach that like consideration a little bit without asking you first, like, hey, are you cool to spend 5 minutes with my kiddo while I go do X? Like, and I mean, maybe they ask, maybe they don't. And so that's interesting. I mean, it's definitely having working with so many parents nowadays
Mm-hmm.
in my recent years here, and having more of our friends have kids of their own. I definitely have grown my compassion for
Oh
parenthood. I mean,
yeah.
my sister has really young kids. When my brother had his kids, I was a kid myself. I was, my brother is 16 years older than me, and so he had his kids many, many years ago. Now they're adult men out in the world, and so it's just different. My niece and
Yeah.
nephew, my sister's kids, are super little still. And so just like seeing her and how much work it is raising small kids, especially. And a lot of my friends or our friends have small kids, and
Yes.
small kids are all consuming. I mean, all kids are, right? But like
Right.
small kids really are all consuming. It is
Right.
just incessant. It's nonstop. So it's definitely helped develop my compassion for them.
Right.
um,
Right. And, this is a bad joke. Don't judge me. I know you won't, but the audience don't judge me. But sometimes I'm like, maybe I should just have kids so I can make friends, right? Because you get
I'm
plugged
sure a lot of people have that.
and then you start making friends. Like it's like that's one way to start getting some friendships.
That's interesting though, because I've heard that's true, but then I've also heard the opposite from a lot of moms. Not that
Mm,
they had kids to make
yeah.
friends with other moms, but when they did, they struggled more because motherhood, parenthood, but this mostly mothers I'm
Yeah.
talking to, it sounds, and a lot of our guests have said it can be very isolating. So it's
Right.
just interesting. I think that like at the end of the day, we all have a lot of the same feelings. Those of us that are parents, those of us that aren't. Isolation, right? Insecurity.
Mhm.
Where do I stand? I must be the only person in the world that feels like that. Like I remember when we had our first adult friendships conversation, I felt like this is going to be fucking awful because I'm probably the only person in the world that feels like this.
Yeah.
And then it's clear from all of the listens and downloads and conversations we've had subsequently online and with friends and family and people that have reached out that like, holy shit, no, we're not alone in it at all. And
and I think it's getting harder. I really think with social media, right? And the younger generations or people younger than us that have grown up way more with online communities, I think it really is getting harder making friends after like college, right? Unless you're working somewhere where there's people you interact with. You know,
and
if you're
willing to be
from
friends
home
with them.
and you want to be, yeah, exactly. But like for, okay, so making friends, right? Like you've told me how you've met people through online stuff and then you've become friends with them and you recently hung out with them. And like, that's super cool. But so is there a difference for you making friends online versus in person?
Yes, there's a complete, to me, it's strangely, I feel like it was easier to do it online somehow. I just feel like I'm more uncomfortable and awkward in person. So it might be better if I don't meet you in person first.
Yeah.
And then if I meet you in person after we've already connected and gotten to know one another, I probably do better because I feel safer and better. And so you'll find me less weird or uncomfortable or whatever after those like early interactions are kind of like behind us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference. But what's interesting about our generation too is that we came of age, right? As the tides were turning, as the winds were shifting, right? We've talked about AOL, AIM, and early chat rooms, right? Like that kind of stuff in high school and middle school on the show. And yeah, and so I feel like I have my toe in both pools here. And part of me is like, I remember what it was like to not have all the tech informing how I speak to people, the general back and forth that you have with a potential new friend or someone that you're even just thinking about asking to be friends with you or acquaintances with or whatever, people you just talk to, versus people that you meet because you're forced together in person, like school, like work. But as I've said, I've had so many boundaries with work people that it's taken me so many years. I've literally only been breaking the walls down for like work versus friendship and trying to like be able to say to myself, it's okay to have friends that you also work with, that you can have deeper conversation with, that you could be more vulnerable with, and not just try to hold space for them all the time too. Cause that was the role that I took on. It was like, I don't want to offer you anything about me, but I'm here to listen if you want to dump your shit on me. And so I kind of got used to taking that role on with some of my work, air quotes, friends or people, like for most of my, teaching career before that. And then only in the last like handful, less than of years have I just been like, okay, also here's some shit about me. Here's some stuff that's hard. Here's what I'm struggling with, And it's been interesting. It's been eye-opening. And what I find too is that, and I feel like a lot of women have had this, and we've talked to some of them and they're just like, I feel like I'm too much for people. I feel like I can't unload how I'm doing or feeling and be honest about it because I'm going to be judged, or people don't give a shit, or they have their own problems and they don't have time or space for my problems, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is that like people just want to be of use. They want to be helpful. And if they feel like they're always the one sharing with you and you're never sharing with them, eventually, even if they feel held and supported by you, which hopefully they do, they don't feel like it's maybe a reciprocal relationship.
It's like not as nourishing.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh, I guess I'm fucked up and this person's perfect, right? Or this person's never suffering or struggling. It's never the case. So,
but also in the same vein, I have had friendships where they always just want to dump on me and they don't ask me anything about me. And when I try to say some things, it always goes back to them. And all those people coming in my mind right now are not my friends anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Because when I would try to have more balanced conversations and balance friendship, and they always had to make it about them. And I pointed that out, like, there's like 3 people coming to mind right now. Nope.
They didn't get it.
They couldn't. Right. And it was like, well, all right, our friendship's on the line for this,
Good for you.
Yeah, no, it was just so draining. They would like talk on the phone with me for like 2 hours about all their stuff. And like two of the friends was like during when my dad had pancreatic cancer, right? And like they literally couldn't stop talking about themselves. And some of the stuff was stressful, but some of the stuff was like how excited they were about parts of their life. And I was like one of these people was like super into mindfulness. I was like, hi, can you be aware of yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's so great that you were that. I mean, I'm like impressed and I admire that you kind of told your truth, right? Even if maybe it took you a while, you spoke your truth about it. Because that's something that I have a hard time with. So that's so kind of empowering, right? Kind of awesome that even if it maybe took you too many years to be like, hey, actually, I'm feeling a little bit
one-sided.
One-sided, right? It's like, do you see that, right? Can we work on having this be more balanced? And if they literally don't understand, it's like, okay, well, I mean, the fact that you were even able to have that conversation just shows how like emotionally mature, right? That is to me.
I mean, I valued the friendship enough to have those uncomfortable conversations, right? Like with some people, if I don't value the friendship, like if I don't feel like we're like friends,
right,
then I might just stop engaging, you know? But for these two, like I'd been friends with them for years, but it had been years of me trying to have a balanced friendship without me saying anything for years. And then finally I was like, hey, things are happening in my life too, right? So
what about for you for online versus in person?
Yeah. So I feel like I'm pretty good at making friends online, like not social media. It has to be like through Zoom, right? That's how I met Anthony, love Anthony, how I met Sarah, love Sarah, how I met Jana, love Jana. Probably a number of other people too. I'm just not thinking off the top of my head, right? Where like you just click with them. Now, the challenge for me though is maintaining a friendship if they don't live near me. Because I don't want to just have Zoom friendships all the time, right? And so I feel like making friends online is great, right? Like you just have those like soul connections with some people and you're like, they're awesome. I felt that way about a number of our guests. I'm like, oh, I wish these people live closer to me. I've said it to you. Like I would hang out with them. But if they don't live close enough to me, like I am looking for people to do stuff with.
Right.
And, if you're not here, it's harder for me to want to invest my time and effort into that. Right.
Totally.
I already have my long distance friends. I have you, I have Claudia, I have Alana, I have Lauren, I have Raina, right? Like I already have my long distance friends. I'm looking for people to hang out with in real time.
Yeah. Right. Cause there's nothing that compares to in-person energy. It's just not. And just the fun of actually doing something together, even if it's passive, like sitting in a movie theater, right? Like, but you're there together. There's like that companionship piece. And yeah, I get it. I can very much relate. Here's a question.
Yeah.
How many friends do you think is like normal? Because this kind of this is where my head goes to with anxiety. It's like I look at groups of people or people where I'm like, man, that person has a lot of friends. Now, I'm sure if I were to say that to them, maybe they'd be like, oh yeah, like I think everyone sees other people in a different way than they see themselves, maybe, or their experience is obviously different than how I view their experience. But like there are groups of people sometimes where I'm like, that looks great. Like how many friends is normal? Like I feel like for me and the kind of person I am, I have a good number of friends, a perfect number of like true, like intimate, vulnerable, silly, ridiculous, honest, authentic relationships that have been, have been a staple for years or many months at the very minimum, right? If not many, many years. And so it's like, do I question how many friends I have? How many is the correct number of friends? Like how many people can I
8.
arguably?
The number is 8.
The number's 8. Are you just you're just making that up?
That's my
I'm like
favorite
waiting
number.
for you for some like research-based response.
No.
You're like, it's 8. It's 8 people. I'm like, okay, cool. I've got that. Woo, I'm on the right train.
I nailed the friendship train.
But right, it's like, I see, and again, Instagram's not real life. It's like, oh my God, that person's hanging out with like 30 people. It's like,
yes.
But is that normal? I'm guessing they all don't have extremely the same type of relationship. Maybe that person's close with only a handful of them, and the rest of them may be friends, air quotes, or people use the word friends differently too.
Oh,
it's like,
yes. Right.
What does friend mean?
You and I were talking about someone and you're like, oh, your friend. And I was like, no. I was like, I know this person.
Yes.
I would be friends with them if they lived closer, but I do not define them as a friend. And they're a lovely person. But if I barely ever, ever, ever talk to them, I don't consider it. Right. So then there's like, how do we define all this?
Right. There's no contracts. This is what I said in our first episode. Mm-hmm. Friendship has no contracts. There's no like, here's the beginning of our friendship. Here's the end of our friendship. Like we're in like, is this in perpetuity friendship until you fuck me over? I fuck you over. Like what? I mean, there's just, the rules are so much blurrier. And I do really well with rules and outlines and expectations.
Yes. I want you to make a friendship contract.
I should.
I want you to be
I'm Sheldon Cooper with friendships.
Yes. This is my expectations at the beginning. We will do a check-in after 5 hangouts to see how it's going for both of us.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say 5 years. I'm like, that is a long time to check
5 hangouts. Then after that, if we both decided, okay, we want to invest in this time, then we'll create a new contract with new goals.
Perfect. With new goals. Yeah. Exactly. It's like, we can make amendments to the contract. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, yeah. So the reason why this question came up is actually found an article. It's a New York Times article from May of this year.
Okay.
It was by Catherine Pearson, and it's just titled, "How Many Friends Do You Really Need?"
Oh, okay.
And it was really interesting. So a couple of highlights from this article.
Yeah.
The Catherine Pearson, I guess, has this ongoing argument with her husband. She's an introvert, he's an extrovert. And so like the pandemic obviously made this argument all the more contentious. Mm-hmm. And so like, what about when your partner, right? Too, that's a whole other thing. If your partner is more extroverted or introverted than you, mm-hmm. Do you go out and do things by yourself more? Or, when I say by, like with other people that aren't them.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's a kind of a separate thing, but here was something interesting. Quote, "For years, friendship in America has been in decline, a trend that accelerated during the pandemic. 3 decades ago, 3% of Americans told Gallup pollsters that they had no close friends. In 2021, an online poll put it at 12%. About a year into the pandemic, 13% of women and 8% of men aged 30 to 49 said they'd lost touch with most of their friends." So I thought that alone, that short little moment, kind of felt right to me to share, because I just thought it was interesting the way that polls are a snapshot in time. Anyone knows that, right? But still, right, the fact that just 30 years ago 3% of Americans said they had no close friends, and now we have 12% that say they have no close friends. Like that's obviously the pandemic, and then it went up for women, right? And men, well, I didn't say what men were before because the 3% just says for Americans, so I'm guessing obviously men and women. And I thought the age selection was interesting too, right? So the poll is for age 30 to 49. It's like middle age.
Yeah.
This is when shit's the most complicated, right? The most busy in many ways, at least for maybe the majority of the population in this country anyway. I guess I shouldn't speak for outside of America, but I thought that was interesting. Just what a jump, pandemic aside, right? Between like people that said they had no close friends to now, it's like 12% is pretty high, and now 13% for women since the pandemic, and that they've lost a lot of friends. It's like, I can relate pretty hard to that, or my friendships with certain people just changed dramatically after the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't even that maybe they're not gone, but they are so different. Like I don't view them the same way anymore. And I imagine the same is true vice versa.
Yeah. Right. No, the pandemic really, I obviously changed so much in so many different ways. I mean, for me, I feel like it's more, I didn't get the opportunity to make as many friends because I moved here in like December of 2018. Right. And then Dan and I were dating, and like I was spending a lot of my time with Dan, and then I was trying to make friends at improv, and I probably would have plugged into the community more, especially once I moved to, just south of Denver where I am now, because originally I was living in Denver and then I moved. And then the pandemic happened, and it has really made it super challenging being in the suburbs where not that much is going on to get the opportunities to meet people. Yeah. And I like tried pretty hard with our neighbors, and I just feel like they don't really want to be my friend, which is fine. Right? It's okay. Right. But I feel like they were not in the market for friends. And so, so for me, in regards to the pandemic, I just feel like it hurt my opportunity of plugging into more communities.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That weren't online, certainly. Right.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Right. Which seems like, well, as you said, is more of what you're seeking.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing the article said was that how social media factors in, right, or doesn't factor in to people's friendships as adults. And the research from this article suggests that the size of a person's online network may not have any real meaningful impact on their perceived well-being. Thought that was interesting. And but at the same time, while in real life friendships might have faded or changed drastically, many people found more connections online. Yeah.
Interesting.
So I know. I thought those 2 points were interesting. And it's just like, yeah, it's like, it doesn't matter how many people you're connected with on social media necessarily, right? It's not going to necessarily impact your well-being in a positive way.
Maybe we should, nobody steal my idea. Maybe we should make a how to make friends online course, and create an app with it so that you can like swipe for people in your area to do stuff with.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like some of those dating apps now have friendship like offshoots.
Okay, but I don't really know, but I believe you. But like, how would you feel if all of a sudden like Adam had OkCupid on his phone?
No, I mean, I would lose my fucking mind.
Right. But what if he was trying to make friends, right? You need a separate app. You can't be dating and friends, because I mean, I'd be like, Dan, why do you have Tinder on your, like,
right. No, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Although just thinking about this sounds really stressful because it's a lot of tech stuff that I don't have any experience with. So like, I suppose if we could hire someone to do all that for us, I'm down.
Yeah. We'll start with the course.
There you go. It's like, we don't know we don't know fucking zero about friendships over here, but we're going to make a course.
Yes. On how to make friends.
Friendships.
We'll do it together, and then we'll all become friends in our class, and then more online friends, and maybe some of us will live near each other.
Right.
And then,
the class is really just for our benefit.
Yes. That's how we're going to make awkward friends. Souls. Yeah.
Right. Okay. The course is just going to be called "Do You Want to Be Friends with Us?"
Yes.
Also, who lives near Denver and who lives on Long Island?
Yes.
I love it.
I think that, excellent way to ideas. Make friends. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So funny.
Yeah.
Oh my.
I mean, I feel like we could do a part 3 on this too. I just feel like there's so much to making friends, because, we haven't really talked about like becoming like couple friends, right? Like, sure, if Adam's been friends with Drew a long time, like, yeah, that's just going to happen. But like, what happens when both of you are meeting new people to hang out with at the same time? And, like, Dan and I have hung out with a number of his friends and their significant others, right? But like, do we click, right? So then there's like, there's the making your own friends, but then it's like the making your couple friends. And I feel like that's even a conversation worth being had at some point.
Just like a separate conversation. Maybe it's a good one for when we finally have Dan and Adam on the show.
Ooh, good idea. Okay.
We'll have a double date.
Yeah.
Abby and Dan, Marco and Adam, and we'll talk about some of this shit. Yeah, it'd be good. It'd be good. Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that we're just barely scratching the surface on this topic, but it's been fun to just kind of like see what's remained the same and what's different. I guess the last thing I want to say is that I have a good amount of pride in myself that I'm being more, I'm putting myself out there more. I feel like I'm being braver with all types of friendships, not just online ones, but with people that I do see. I'm having more intimate and vulnerable relationships with colleagues. I don't really have coworkers in the same way anymore because I'm not like in the same place all the time. I'm in so many different places, but people that work adjacent to me, schools I work in, and public spaces that I teach in and stuff, and doing my best to kind of be like, hey, you want to hang out after work kind of thing. And like, it's been received well. And I've had lots of fun and getting to know people outside of the work setting and kind of letting the boundary down a little bit. So I'm hopeful that I can continue to honor my introverted, awkward, boundary loving self while also gently stepping out here and there when I feel like someone could be my person or definitely is, right? And like, when we just spoke to Christy not too long ago, and we found each other through another mutual friend on Instagram, and then of course she came on our show, and she lives here on Long Island. It's like, I'm hoping to be able to get together with her in person sometime soon, and I just feel like this, and I never would have ask that person or any person for that matter via Instagram that I've only connected with a handful of times, like through DMs and here on the show, like if they'd want to hang out in person, like I would never consider that something I would ever have done. And now I'm doing that. So it's like, that's a good win.
I feel like some of that comes, and that is a huge win. Yes. Putting yourself out there and making the effort is definitely a huge win, right? Asking people to hang out and then being like, and then you doing it is a huge win. And I think, when you were like, reaching out to people and asking, through like DMs if they want to hang out, I feel like part of maybe the not wanting to do that just comes from like when we were younger and it was like, hey, like only creeps slide into your DMs, right? Like, right. But now we're learning like, no, there's a ton of normal people.
Right.
That it's just like, hey, you seem cool. Yeah, cool. We've had some connection. Cool. Let's hang out. Right.
Totally.
I think like my last thing I'll say is, one of the things that I forgot to say, or I said a little bit, but not enough in our earlier part of the conversation was just, I think like my biggest fear when it comes to putting an effort of making friends is, the fear that I'm going to waste my time. The fear that maybe this person and I won't click. Right. And that's not that terrible, but like, what if they're extremely exhausting and draining, right? What if they're an emotional vampire, right? And so that's definitely like one of my fears is investing the time and energy, maybe like having all these high hopes, like, oh, this person's awesome. And then the more I get to know them, I'm like,
there's disappointment.
Oh, yeah. Right. And then it's like, oh, how did I, what's wrong with me? Or, like, now how do I pull apart? Or, like any of that stuff. So it's like the energy required. And I'm really trying to like get over that part, like reminding myself I can trust myself in who I choose to hang out with. Like I can trust myself. I've been around the block a few times with some emotional vampires, like, and so Dan and I recently did a couples date with someone that he kind of knew from like 10 years ago. And they had like reconnected on Instagram and it was very nice. And I am looking forward to our next hang. Right. And so for me, like the final thing is like, I have to just keep reminding myself that I can trust myself in who I'm spending time with and giving my time and energy to, and that like good things can come of it. Right. Like, so
that's beautiful. I mean, and what came up for me when you were just talking is just like the hearing the words waste of time, right? Obviously has negative connotation to it. I feel like I want to hear the word waste, right? It's like something, this has become trash. This is no longer serving, right? So it's been a waste, and obviously time is fleeting and also precious, and we have a limited amount of it. But what ran through my brain too, just trying to, because I definitely have that fear as well, at least sometimes, or definitely sometimes I should say, but is I'm just curious if we were to be able to reframe it as like, if in that moment, right, the moments that we spent with a person felt nourishing and fun and you were present with them, but it doesn't maybe develop or become anything deeper or different with the disappointment, can we also, or I'm more just for myself, because when I've been in that situation, my head kind of goes to, what can I look at about that situation and say, well, here's at least some positive takeaways, right? Like some things that I gained from being in the moment with that person, even if I'm disappointed with the outcome or something.
Right.
And it's like just trying to, flip the script in my own head as to like, as opposed to calling it like, wow, I really wasted all those years or months. It's like trying to look at it as like, wow, but here's some of my favorite memories, or here's something that I really loved about that person, and or whatever. And just doing my best to focus my energy on that. Like, it doesn't always work, definitely not, but it does sometimes, and maybe even more often than not. So yeah, that came up for me when you said that, because I've definitely felt notes of that before. And I've gotten stronger at like reframing it.
I feel like we need to have now another episode on like the grief that comes with the ending of friendships.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah. Because even if the friendship wasn't working, even if it was toxic, even if there was mutual harm by both parties, right, there still is a grief when it ends. And so sometimes it's harder to put boundaries or change or say no to the friendship because you don't want to experience the grief of loss afterwards, because there are good parts too in the friendship. Yeah,
totally. Oh my gosh.
I'm going to write it down.
This could be like, we're going to need like a whole series, friendship series.
Yeah.
Look out for our app, everyone, our course, which is really just about finding us more friends. But also maybe you out there. Also, you out there.
Say hello to your friends, Margot and Abby.
Anxiety Warriors Club.
Anxiety Warriors. Nothing's better than this club with us, because you know that you'll have so much fun.
Woo! Lovely.
Yeah.
Make new friends, but keep the old. Take it.
Abby and Margot are totally gold.
Woo! Yes. I got anxious in my head. I'm like, who's going to be silver? Oh no. We're both gold, bitch.
Yeah,
both
that's right.
Gold, honey.
Yes. Gold stars.
That's right. All the gold stars. Lots of twinkles and sparkle and shine for us. Okay, Abby, let's hear your win of the week.
Win of the week. Well, first of all, I would like to acknowledge that we both shared wins, because we've been putting ourselves out there and we are noticing that we are connecting more with people and maybe making friends. So I just want to acknowledge we've double winned, and now I'm going to add a win to the wins. So it's just a win day. A win. We're recording on a win day.
A window into the wind days.
The wins. Okay. So my win, it's hard now because
send help.
Just went on a tangent there. Okay, for real. My win is one of Dan's friends recently reached out to me and was like, hey, so you still teaching kids yoga? We want you to come to our school. And I haven't been teaching for all the pandemic, in part because I haven't wanted to get COVID. And so I was like, yeah, I am teaching, because I've been doing teaching online, but none in person. And so my win is, starting next week, even though this is going to come out probably after that, I will be teaching kids again in an elementary school in person. And I am so excited.
Yay. That is a huge win.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. First class back in person. It's going to feel so good. It's going to feel so good.
So good. So I'm excited for this. I've been like planning lesson plans and daydreaming about teaching, and it just feels like a huge win. And it was from one of Dan's friends. So extra win on wins.
When new friends can offer new opportunities.
Yeah.
Right. Love it. That's awesome. That's going to be, I can't wait to hear about how that goes.
Yes.
I mean, I know it's going to be freaking phenomenal, but just direct from you, like that it went off without a hitch and everything was great. And I can't wait. That's going to feel so good. I can't wait for you.
Thank you.
Yay. Big wins. All right, warriors. Well, we hope that you enjoyed round 2 here of our anxiety and adult friendships chat. So if you haven't had the chance to listen to our first anxiety and adult friendships episode, it was way back from actually almost a year ago today, which we're recording in mid-October, and it was this episode came out last November. It was episode 32, anxiety and adult friendships. And so if you want to hear our initial thoughts on this topic in our most listened to episode, definitely go back and check out episode 32 of our show. Scroll all the way back many, many episodes ago to that episode. We had a lot of fun chatting about it then, and we enjoyed this conversation. We hope that you will take some time today or this week to reflect on your relationship to other people, your platonic friendships. If you are an adult and you also have feelings or struggles or insecurities about making and maintaining adult friendships, what kind of comes up for you? What came up for you while you were listening to us talk? Were you able to resonate with some of the stuff we said? Did you have a lot of stuff swimming around in your own head? Were you nodding along? Were you shaking your head like, what the fuck are these bitches talking about? My friendships are fine.
I am not signing up for their course.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're just cool people. Come sign up anyway, just to hang out with us. But, and if you have perfect friendships, feel free to email us. Let us know your thoughts on how to do it better. What's working for you really well? What's been working for you through the pandemic or for your whole life, maybe for that matter. You can reach us at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com with that information, or for any other reason, you can shout out your wins of the week, share topic ideas with us, or if you think you'd be an awesome fit as a guest on our show, let us know. Let's get connected and hear about your anxiety journey and help you tell your story. You can connect with us on Instagram at Anxiety Warriors Podcast. You can also take 2 seconds, please, and smash that 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you tune into your podcasts, this podcast. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And go into our show notes and click on the Threadless link. It is almost holiday time. We're almost at Halloween, and the holiday season is literally upon us. So
'tis the season to buy gifts to show how much you love your friends and family.
Because they are warriors just like you. Maybe get them some mugs or shoes.
Yes.
Nice. Okay. So go support our show by clicking our link in our show notes, visiting our Threadless shop, grab yourself some Anxiety Warriors podcast swag for yourself and or the warriors in your life for this holiday season, and support our work through doing so.
Yes. Thank you all so much for going on this journey with us. We're so grateful that we get to do this with you all.
Till next time.